Okay, so dear professors, forms of business entities. And I'll be requiring some of you to read for me. So when I do, you share or you read for me. So yesterday we went through the basics you are supposed to know regarding this topic. And I believe you appreciate that you need to know more, especially you need to know the types of these business organizations, their advantages and disadvantages, most importantly. However, it's important for you to appreciate what they offer. And we saw that they offer either services or goods. So as you see in this picture, there are some services like food services, barbering services. You also see some products like or goods like cement, iron rods, okay, etc. So let's define business and then look at their offerings. So a business is an entity established to provide goods and services to customers to generate profit. And I believe we all appreciate that. Now, what are these goods? The goods are the tangible ones. Okay. The tangible ones you can see, you can store, you can touch them. So in the picture I showed earlier, you could see the cement, you can touch a cement, you can touch iron rods. Okay. Then those that you cannot touch, the intangible ones, are the services. So like the hairdressing, the cleaning, the security, even what I'm doing, the teaching service. Yeah. And one distinction between goods and services are that goods can be stored, but services cannot be stored. Okay. You can be asked in an exam to differentiate between goods and services, and I believe you can do that. Importance of business in society. What are the benefits we derive from businesses in society? The first one is economic growth and job creation. So somebody is an accountant today because of a certain business. Someone is a bank manager or is a chief executive officer because of a business. So without businesses, there will be no jobs for us to, apply to and, secure. Economic growth, it is businesses that expand the economy of every country. So countries can develop or grow when businesses in that country are expanding in production of goods and services. So of course, the foundation of a country's growth is dependent on businesses that are established in that country. Okay. Two is innovation and technological advancement. The laptops we are using, the phones, all these are products of businesses. So without businesses, we wouldn't have these ICT tools, right? So innovation and technological advancement. Three, wealth creation and income distribution. So the bit about job creation, at least tells you that as you are being employed by a business, you are generating wealth or income. So, for example, if Mr. Moa, I establish a business and I employ you, I'm going to pay you salaries, right? I'm going to purchase raw materials from suppliers. So, in a way, I'm distributing the monies that I have to this group of people. And that's the wealth creation and income distribution. But for businesses, it will be difficult for you to distribute wealth or even create wealth. The next one is customer satisfaction and choice. Because of businesses, people have the opportunity to make choices. That is why today you can decide to eat gobe, tomorrow you can decide to go for KFC, because these businesses are there to offer you that service. The next one, social responsibility and sustainability. I think you've all heard about this word, social responsibility. Let me hear your thoughts on that. What comes to mind when you hear social responsibility? You can cite a scenario to explain if so wish. Social responsibility. Yes, my professors. Who is going to speak to me on social responsibility? Oh, professors, you've done this. We are just revising, so don't kill me with your silence. Let me call one of you then. Prof. Selicam, what is your version of social responsibility? Yes.
Sir, please, there are obligations or duties we perform in the society.
Okay. So can you cite an example?
Sir, please, keeping the environment clean.
Great. Thank you very much on that. Prof. Portia, you wanted to submit your opinion. You can go ahead. Prof. Portia?
Say.
Yes, you can go ahead with your submission.
Okay, so social responsibility and sustainability simply means like businesses offer their service, like it's their duty for them to provide goods and services to the people, making it possible for the society to get whatever wants they need. Yeah.
Okay, interesting thoughts there. So, you see, the social responsibility of businesses stems from the fact that these businesses get their resources, raw materials from the society or community, right? So it makes sense for them to also give back to the community. So the examples that you cited, cleaning the environment, okay. So it is the impact the business would want to make in the society for taking their resources out of that society. So most of the times you find businesses establishing schools, offering scholarship for people in the community. All these are ways of giving back to the society that you are also taking from, because your workers are coming from that society. Your raw materials are coming from the society, right? So it makes sense for you to also give back to the society. So I don't know if you have experience, but I remember some time past, Peace FM used to donate items to widows, orphanages. All these are clear case of the business committing to social responsibility and sustainability. Great. Thank you for your input. The last one is infrastructure development and investment. So imagine some businesses find themselves in the villages and it becomes difficult for them to, transport their goods in and out of their premises, and for that matter, or even raw materials. So what they do is they try to build bridges, construct roads, and all these are part of infrastructure, right? Some even go to the extent of providing boreholes, etc., for the communities, and all these things add up to infrastructure. So these are the benefits that businesses give to the society. Any question from a professor on what I've said so far? Great, no question. So let's move on. Forms of business organizations. Forms of business organization. There are several forms, and depending on where you find yourself, you have various forms of business organizations. But for us, as business management students in Ghana, at the SHS level, we are going to look at these three main forms of business organizations. And as you can all see, we have the sole proprietorship, the partnership, and company. Sole proprietorship, partnership, and company. Interestingly, I've given you work to do on the sole proprietorship and partnership. So I'll leave that to you. I'll move straight to the company business. Now I'll call on one of you to read what you see on the screen regarding a company business. Prof. Afiba, can you do the reading for us?
A company refers to a legal entity or organization formed by individuals known as shareholders or members to conduct business activities. Incorporation of companies in Ghana is regulated by the Companies Act 2019, Act 992, which allows one or more persons to incorporate a company.
Okay, that is an awesome reading. Thank you very much. Now let's digest what Prof has read. A company refers to a legal entity. So a legal entity here means that it is one that is backed by law. So that is to say, if you want to form a company, you have to go through some legal procedures, right, to get it legally established. And it is formed by individuals who are normally called shareholders or members. So the owners of a company are called shareholders. Professors note that the owners of a company are called shareholders. Now, they do this because they want to conduct business to make profit. Some may not be willing to make profit as well. We'll get to that bit. Now, in Ghana, these organizations or setups are regulated by law, as it is established that it's a legal entity, so it follows certain laws. Now, currently in Ghana, the law that is regulating companies is the Companies Act 2019, Act 992. So it is this law that governs, the operations of a company in this country. Now, let me be quick to tell professors that this law was amended just recent, last 2019. It was amended and published in 2019. Before that, it was regulated by the Ghana's Companies Code 1963, Act 179. So that was the earlier law for the purposes of extra knowledge. So the new law is the Companies Act 2019, Act 992. So this one came to replace the old Companies Code 1963, Act 179. Professors may want to jot that as well. Okay, so that's a company for us. Now, let's move on to the next thing on the table. Types of companies. Types of companies. So according to the act or the law that we just saw, there are four types of companies. 4 types of companies. And the first one is a company limited by shares. Second is a company limited by guarantee. The third is an unlimited liability company. And finally, an external company. Professors, you have to tell me about this because you have done them. So companies limited by shares. What is that? What is that? Is it an animal or a plant? If you don't put okay, so I have Enam. Prof Enam, go ahead.
A company limited by shares is a company whose liability is limited to the amount paid on the shares held by each member.
It's awesome, Prof. Enam, but can you make it so simple for a market woman in Makola to understand this? Okay, I think Josephine wants to do that. So Josephine, go ahead. Make it so simple for us.
Okay, so a company limited by shares simply means that the company is owned by the shareholder, whereby the shareholder provides capital and resources to the company in exchange for ownership interests.
Okay. Interesting points there. Now let me make this thing. Or who would want to give it a try? Like, you see what they have said. Sitting here, I'm like, hey, the English is sweet and big, but in simple terms, what does it mean when we say a company is limited by shares? Prof. Akoli, I would want a masculine version of that. Okay, I'll come to Portia later if I hear from Akoli. Prof. Akoli. Augustine. Akoli.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
what's
sir.
your thought? What's your thought on that?
So, okay, it simply means that if a company is limited by shares, it's only the shareholders who provide the capital for the company to operate in its activities.
Okay. I think we are all dancing around the same music. Prof. Portia, let me hear from him. And now I'll come back to you. Thank you. Prof. Portia, go ahead.
So say, when a person's share is, please come again. The question was.
Okay, so what they have said is true, but I want a very simple meaning to what they have said. That the members' liability is limited to how much unpaid shares they have. What does it mean in simple terms?
It means that when the person is allotted share in a company, they will be required to provide consideration in the form of cash or some goods or services in exchange for the shares.
Okay. Enam, I'll pick on Enam, and I think those who haven't spoken yet, I'll come to you. Don't worry. So Enam, let me hear from you.
The consideration paid by the shareholders is used to settle the liability of the company.
Okay. So let me share my thoughts on this, and then I think we can make progress. But if you have a question, feel free to go ahead and ask. So when we say a company is limited by share, what it simply means is that if the business suffers huge losses, or if the business is collapsing because their debts are becoming too many, then we are saying that a shareholder would only lose how much he or she is supposed to contribute in the form of the shares the person owns. So example, Mr. Ebenezer Yawamwa, I'm a shareholder of BM Company Limited. And then the company had huge losses. And so our creditors are coming to us for their monies. If I have shares to a tune of 100,000 Ghana cedis, I'm going to lose that amount. So because of that, if out of the 100,000, I have already paid or invested 80,000 in the business, and I'm yet to give the business the 20,000 balance, then my liability will be limited to the unpaid amount of shares I'm yet to give to the business. Okay, so when we say the company is limited by shares, well, let's see what we have here. So the member's liability is limited to the amount unpaid on the shares held by each member, if any. So if you have bought 100,000 shares But out of the 100,000, you have paid 80,000. If the business suffers any loss, first of all, you lose the 80,000 and also the 20,000 balance you are supposed to add on. That's the unpaid amount. So in essence, you only lose how much you are to contribute to shares to the company. Okay, so that bit is where we say if a member has fully paid for allotted shares, they will not be required to make any further payment. So take note of that. So if I have 100,000 shares and I have paid it fully, let me make it simple. If you are a student of a school, you pay school fees, right? The school fees payment gives you a legitimate claim as a student of the school, right? So let's liken the school fees to the shares. So if you are the owner of a business, you are supposed to pay for the shares you own. Okay, so imagine you have bought 50,000 shares, right? If you have paid 30,000, you owe the business 20,000. If the business suffers any loss and the creditors are coming for their money, or we have to settle liabilities, then you will lose your total shares you hold in the business. So if you have fully paid it, then you have no problem. But if you haven't fully paid it, then you have to go and find money to pay the balance you owe on that shares. Okay, so that's the bit where it says, in instances where a member has not provided, okay, Josephine, I'll come to you, provided any consideration at all, or has made part payment for allotted shares, they may be called on to pay the unpaid amount. Okay, so in a company limited by shares business, the shareholder will only be called to come and pay any money he or she has not paid if there are huge losses and the business need money to take off. Great. May I hear from you, Josephine?
Yeah, so are you saying that if the person pays is owing if the person is owing, the business is going to take the amounts they gave to them initially.
Okay, so let me use the school fees scenario to make it more clearer. So let's say we are all schooling, right? And we are supposed to pay school fees 1,000 Ghana cedis. Okay. Mr. Amo, I've paid my 1,000 Ghana cedis. Josephine, you have paid 800 Ghana cedis. So you owe 200 cedis. If the school is collapsing, the issue is that, Mr. Amo, I'll lose the 1,000 cedis I've paid. Now you, Josephine, you lose the 800 you have paid, but the school will call you to come and pay the 200 cedis you have not paid. Does it make sense now?
Yes, please.
Great. So that's a company limited by shares. If the business is shutting down or collapsing and they need money to pay for liabilities, all those who have paid their shares, they lose it and that's all. But if you haven't paid, you would have to be called, or you will be called to come and settle. Great. Now let's look at certain unique features of these companies, okay? So if it's a private company, remember a company can be private or public, whether it is limited by share or guarantee or whatever. If it is a private one, this is how you would know them. Their name ends with limited company, or you see LTD. So now if you are walking around and you see maybe Araba Johnson Company Limited, then you know that, okay, this is a private company limited by shares. Or when you see LTD, right? If it is a public, and I'll share thoughts about this private and public companies for you to appreciate. If it is public, then you see PLC, Public Limited Company. So that is what you can use to tell whether a business is a private limited private company limited by shares or public company limited by shares. Any question on what I've said so far? Okay, no question. So do professors know any business that has maybe PLC or LTD attached to it that is so popular in this country? Oh, none of you. Yes. Paddy. Uh-huh.
Private company limited.
Sorry, take it again.
Please, the PLC.
Yes.
Yes, GBC Bank.
Okay, so GC Bank, the full name is GCB Bank PLC. Okay, so the PLC is saying that GCB is a public limited company. Great, awesome. That's a good observation. You should make these things very realistic by, looking at. So we have a lot of them: Unilever, Ghana PLC, Nestle Ghana PLC, SIC Insurance Company PLC, EcoBank. In fact, most of the banks are PLCs. Okay, and then MTN is a PLC, is a public limited. Most of the private ones, you see them like FANMOC. Let me look at the FANMOC one. If you have seen the FANMOC PLC before, eh? Okay. What of the LTD? Don't you know any company that has LTD attached? That's very popular in Ghana.
DHL Ghana Limited.
Okay. But I see, in fact, some of the companies used to be private limited companies. MTN is an example. MTN used to be LTD because it was a private until it became a public. Okay. Those who have their hands up, I'm sure you want to contribute to the LTDs and the PLC. I think I'll hold on to that. Okay, maybe some assignment you provide all those answers there. Okay, so we can move on. Somebody is typing in the chat. What did the person say? The person says that okay, KK Pepra Company Limited. Yes, we have them there. In fact, we have Mr. Amwa Company Limited, and I deal in selling of K Ofori Limited. Mr. Amwa Limited deals in selling of assignments. So I'll be selling assignment to you. Okay, professors, I think we have 4 minutes for our first session to zoom into our break. Okay, so I'll let you that. Now let's go to the second one, which is a company limited by guarantee. Company limited by guarantee. And before we look at this one, professors, try and search as many as possible companies that are limited by guarantee that are operating in Ghana. When we resume from the break, I will ask that from you, and then we'll continue our discussion. So I think you got the activity. List as many as possible companies limited by guarantee that you know in Ghana.